All right. So, Honorable Jimmy AKENA, away from your political bid for 2026, I also read somewhere that Honorable Betty Amongi is making a shift to leader from Oyam. First of all, I would love to know or to understand from you, literally just a simple understanding. How is it to be leading the UPC, being in UPC, and your wife is serving in NRM? How is it to you? How have you managed this?
My wife has been serving as a minister in the government of Uganda. Government of Uganda. I must stress that one. It is different from NRM as an entity. NRM is a political party. NRM at its current form dominates um, the parliament and maybe the political space. Hence, the government is being run by NRM, but it's a government of Uganda. So, my urging to all who have an opportunity to serve at a national level, serve in the interest of the people. Um, because those offices are there to serve the people, you must do everything you can for the people of Uganda. We have, I have remained in UPC, Betty has been in UPC. In every election, we have had NRM field candidates against us. We have competed against NRM candidates, and we have won, including in the last election where she was a minister contesting. NRM fielded a candidate. We still won. She won the seat, and then she was appointed again as a minister. So our being able to serve the country does not remove our rights to be able to compete for seats according to our own beliefs and in a party which we support. So um, definitely, Honorable Betty, we've made a decision that she's now going to come and contest in Lira City for the 2026 election. We have candidates who are going to, who are interested in her seat in Oyam South. Likewise, I have candidates who are interested in my seat of Lira City East, who are going to go through a process, and I'll support whoever holds the flag for the 2026 election.
All right, thank you very much once again for tuning. My name is Daniel Mugoya, and straight away, I am having my guest here today, who is the party president of the Uganda People's Congress, UPC, Honorable Jimmy AKENA. Jimmy AKENA has been in the political space for quite long, and it is not a coincidence that we are going to compare notes in the political space right now. Honorable, welcome and say hello to the viewers.
Thank you very much. It's great to be on UBC.
Okay, thank you very much. Honorable, I'm hosting you at a time when the public is a bit confused in the political space, and I don't know whether you agree with me.
Confused in what way?
In whatever the events are happening, looks like divide and rule is taking over everything. How did we get to this situation?
But you see, normally when you come to this stage in a political cycle, there are things which happen as you are heading towards elections. There will be people moving this way and that way. There will be all sorts of stories. There will be a lot of things which will happen. But that is, I would say, the normal discourse as we're heading towards a general election. So for me, I'm not taken aback, and this is normal as far as I'm concerned, and we'll continue with what we've been doing.
If you remember very well from the time you joined the politics, and you have been studying the politics of Uganda for quite a long time, what are the factors that may have contributed to the step or the where we are right now?
There are many factors. On the side of a member of parliament, um, we are being pushed into situations where um, a member of parliament is expected to substitute government. That when government is not available, member of parliament should step in and to do things which are beyond the role of a member of parliament. And trying to take up those responsibilities is, I think, part of the issue which has put pressure on the incomes of members of parliament, and there's a constant demand for more resources. But ultimately, I believe that we need to find solutions which work for the people of Uganda. We should not be stressing our members of parliament and our other elected leaders to do things which are outside of the scope or control of, um, of the particular member. Government should be able to work, services should be available, it should not be upon the member of parliament. But each election cycle now becomes more and more expensive because the demands are greater, the needs are greater, and so it's somewhat of a vicious cycle, which hopefully will come to an end at some point.
What are some of these solutions?
I'll give you one example. Very many members of parliament own ambulances and operate an ambulance service. That ordinarily should not be the role of a member of parliament. But it comes about because there's a gap in the service delivery of getting patients from wherever they are to the medical facilities in time. So it's a gap where leaders have been stepping in, but it's also creating a financial burden on the particular leaders because they now have to have a budget to maintain that vehicle, to do whatever is necessary. So those are areas which ordinarily government should address, and it should not be onto members of parliament. Then condition of roads, you find those same things. There are many areas where you're finding somebody having to go out of their way and outside of their normal duty requirements as a member of parliament.
But you have been in the political space for a long time. You must be in position to share with maybe for starters how this has evolved in the governance and politics in your own perspective, right from the days of UPC and now.
The days of UPC, issues of service delivery were clearly an issue of government. And it's something which, as UPC, we pride ourselves for. We're able to deliver quality healthcare. We're able to deliver quality education equitably across the country. So these are services which we do not take for granted, but we know that there's a lot of effort involved in delivering those services. Now, where they're lacking, you're finding somebody is being forced to try to deliver. But this is something which has been going on for some time. So I think we need to take a time to stop and reflect. What is it that we actually expect? What should we expect as a citizen of Uganda? I mean, there are certain basic things we should expect. We should expect a child born in Uganda should be born in a decent health facility. There should be medical personnel available to handle that delivery. The child's growth, the under 5 period, all of these milestones which a child has to go through. Then the education. Are we able to impart a quality education to this young Ugandan that they'll be independent and be able to survive in the world which we're living in today? So all of those should be something which a Ugandan should know, that as a Ugandan, this is what I should expect. There are certain goods and services which should be readily available. It should not be upon some leader or somebody to be able to deliver that. This should be a given. And those are some of the issues which we hope in this cycle of elections can be in the forefront, and we can be able to address them and have them addressed in a manner which benefits the citizens in all their activities.
If you remember very well, when was that time that the tables were turned and we got to this issue of service delivery were neglected?
It's been, I think, a gradual erosion as there's areas people started, quality starts dropping, people start moving. Now, for example, I'll give you the education system. What we talk about, the traditional schools, which could deliver quality students, and these traditional schools were all over the country. Each region had a school which people could admire, want their kids to go to. But over time, these schools have been dropping in quality, the student numbers are reducing, and people are generally moving away. It's not something which has happened overnight, but has been gradual. And now you find in certain areas, you look for a top quality school which can take the young people to the next level, and you find that they're lacking. So it's not something which has happened quickly or suddenly. It has been a slow erosion, and gradually people have become adjusted to it, that these services are not available. There are people who no longer complain that you go to a medical facility and you're asked to provide some of the requirements, or else you're sent out with a prescription to go and get medicine. People no longer complain. I mean, they take it that is the normal, but should not be normal. It should not be things which Ugandans subject themselves to or accept as this is their lot. No, we deserve better and we can actually have better.
In your own view, what is that gap between the citizen and the politicians, the leaders?
You see, the politician is supposed to come out to the citizenry and represent the citizen at the various levels. I think possibly with the way politics is being done, it has become something which not everybody, or not maybe not the most articulate or the person who could maybe express those views. There are a lot of requirements which will come to play. So as a political party, as UPC, we seek to try to identify those we feel can carry the flag and carry the message, which is important in that it gives a blueprint on how we can develop our country, how we can provide for our people in the best way possible. So over time, the issue of resources have become very important. They have been, I think, overused and abused. In every election, you're seeing a lot of money coming out. And in the general election, often you find a year or sometimes 2 years post-election with inflation, i.e. so much money had been pumped into the economy and it now has to find, as it tries to find its level, it puts inflationary pressures on the whole country, which definitely pushes up prices and affects those especially at the margins more than others. So the election in itself sometimes deepens the problems faced, but we have to address it as a country. We have to come to a point and say now that it's important we do what is important to the citizens and put in place people who can make a difference in the overall lives, the collective lives of the citizens.
So, Honorable, looks like the population or the electorate are tired and they no longer have any concern of what happens in the higher positions. Life continues. Don't you think that there is a need for a way of asking for accountability?
I think it is more of people coming to the point of giving up, feeling that they cannot make a difference, that whether they vote or not, it doesn't make a difference. And it reflects in the number, the turnout, the number of people actually vote. We need more enthusiasm. People need to believe that a change can actually, a qualitative change can happen in their lives through an election, that their vote can make a difference, their opinions make a difference. So it's something which I want to believe and push, that the views of the citizens are important. The citizens coming out to vote is important. On my side, I really need the citizens to come out and vote because it makes a big difference, and it also makes ensures that their voices can be heard and respected, especially if they come up in numbers. So I will do everything within my abilities to try and make sure that as many citizens come out and express themselves, that their wishes can then be addressed in the subsequent dispensation.
But you have been in Parliament for long. Parliament passes budget of the Electoral Commission to carry out voter education. But it looks like the gap is still very high. People don't know really why they should vote. And when you leaders come and say people come and vote, it's not enough. Is it enough?
I think it's important that we stress what an election can do. In my own point of view, an election is it's a time where, as a country, all of us have an opportunity to determine or to play a role in where our country is going. At that point, when you're about to cast your ballot, it is yourself, the ballot paper, and basically you're God. So you have a chance to make a decision which makes a big difference. It's unfortunate that over time people have felt that whether they vote or not, it does not make a difference. I tell you, it does make a difference. And especially when you come out in numbers, it makes a huge difference. So on that particular day, there's no leader, no general, no millionaire, no whatever. Everybody has one vote, right? And by that time when we're coming to vote, we have said all that we're going to say. It's now the time for people to make the decision and to see how it goes ahead. So I will urge people, and within my own abilities, I will be asking people to come out and vote, come out and, be a part of the process. Don't be the ones who sat on the side and then complain later that things are not working according to how they would have wanted them to work. Get involved, get interested, push your issues, push your agenda, so that it will be um, adopted and respected across the board. So it's a time where we can have this conversation. It's a time where the outcome of the conversation should be respected. And a large voter turnout will give the people of Uganda a very good um, platform on which we can craft our future.
So, in your own experience, uh, looking through the system of democracy we have in Uganda, was the introduction of multi-party system a viable cause during that time? Were we ready for it as the country?
You see, this is where I completely disagree. Where did multipartyism cause a problem? There are people bring this narrative of multipartyism cause a problem. There's never been a case where parties have actually been the ones causing problems. And even the basis where they say parties were hinged on maybe certain basis, which historically can maybe be explained, it has not been something which has caused war or devastation. The only time you can talk about some sort of religious war, that was in the 1800s. Where you had the Bafaransa and Bangereza issue. That is way, way, way before the political parties. So there's no point where I feel that political parties were the problem. So I don't agree that they should have at any point been denied opportunity to operate, or people, the citizens of Uganda, being denied the right to belong to and to participate in any political party. So it's not a question, was it right? There's more which needs to be done to strengthen the political space, to open the political space where we can have serious discourse on where our country should be, where we should be able to debate issues and respect each other's opinions, whether we agree or we disagree. So in my own point of view, there is no justification at any point whereby political parties should have been proscribed or locked up or denied an opportunity. That is something which I will never agree with, and I strongly hold that it was wrong and it will always be wrong.
How has UPC enjoyed the political space?
We have been trying to operate within the political space. We've been trying to respect as much as possible the requirements in that we write whenever we're having our gatherings, or we inform all relevant officers and try to be cooperative in how we handle it. But there's definitely more which needs to be done, and there's more which we need to do within the political parties to strengthen them. But it's not an easy process, in that the environment which you operate has been geared towards a very commercial type of politics, and resources try to play a big role. But we want to institutionalize the politics, institutionalize the processes, and ensure that through the party, the members and the larger public can be able to be heard, and that their wishes can be implemented as it has been done previously.
I have quite for some time talked to some of the political analysts, and these people are telling me that, you see, UPC during right from its inception, the way it was introduced, it emerged out of division, and this has been one of the major challenges that has been affecting the political parties right from those times up to now. We are just divided every time. It's politics of survival, divide the other and continue. Is it how the case has been?
I would not say UPC came out of division. UPC came out of a need and a belief that the people of Uganda can and will be able to manage themselves. And that is what drove UPC on the independence struggle, on the issue of one man, one vote, in the belief that the citizens of Uganda can manage. And when UPC was elected as the first independence, post-independence government, it was able to deliver on the key areas which it felt were important, key areas which were milestones, in that in the health services, we're able to increase the number of beds available to the citizens of Uganda by 82%. We're able to build the 24 hospitals which people keep talking about. Just yesterday on the floor of Parliament, my colleague was crying about a hospital built in 69, one of the UPC hospitals. Now, not only were these hospitals built, they were able to provide the service. They were able to be staffed and provide the service. And all these institutions came with the supporting institution in that you build a health facility, but you also build accommodation for the workers, health workers. And they will also be able to get quality education for their children wherever it is that they're posted. So it was an important milestone and something which I feel is important. Many areas we need to revisit. We need to be able to provide an opportunity for the rural child that they'll be able to succeed. And whether they fall sick, wherever they are, they'll be able to get the necessary treatment. So these are things which I think we still hold dear, and I don't believe or accept. I think this is a lazy man's prescription to oppress or suppress certain sections of society such that you can try to govern and whether you fail or not, there's no serious challenge to be able to, give an alternative. So as part of opening the space or creating the space, it is to give alternative visions. Let's have those conversations on a serious note. And that way people are informed and then are able to make informed decisions on which way they hope to go.
What's the right platform to have such conversations?
It is every platform, including this platform. As a national broadcaster, this is a very important platform. And where you can lead as this platform of providing opportunities for people to give expressions of where they believe the country should be, or expressions of what they hope the country to be able to achieve. And that way, the electorate are more informed on what is available and what their vote means in the changing fortunes of time. So for me, it's important that we put out our best foot and we try to find a future which will work for all the citizens of Uganda.
Most of your colleagues in the opposition, the political parties, normally they front an idea of we want to remove President Yoweri Museveni as part of their change, what they want. The fundamental thing is let's remove President Yoweri Museveni. What is UPC's cause for that?
UPC has always been for the people. And that is why when we pride ourselves with our achievements are always hinged with the achievements of the people. Whether we talk about we succeeded with the cooperatives were people-based organizations engaged in productive work. So it was a way of how we can get the inputs in, get the necessary outputs out, and get a fair price to the farmer. So when we boast about our success, we're boasting about the success of the people. Whether it is in healthcare, where they're able to get quality healthcare everywhere in Uganda, where we could get education, where the top student can come from any part of the country. It was something which we prided ourselves in, that it is something which we hold dear. So as UPC, we're going to continue on that trajectory of trying to provide a service which makes a big difference in the lives of the citizens, which is a game changer, which gives people opportunities to be able to succeed, which gives people the wherewithal to make a better life for themselves. And that is what, as UPC, we will continue to articulate and continue to hope that we'll be able to get the space to be able to do so.
Okay, Honorable Jimmy AKENA is the UPC president, and we are trying to get this conversation, of course, at this time that we are gearing into 2026 elections. And this is why I'll take you to my next question. Currently, there is something to do with political consensus. And in democracy of consensus, there are those who are urging for dialogue. But I read recently, Honorable Jimmy AKENA says, no, I am coming for the presidency. I thought you would join those who are urging for dialogue and find other ways out.
I do not see a contradiction. I mean, I have always been ready to engage in dialogue. I've engaged in dialogue, it's demonstrated. As far as the peace process, I engage in dialogue. On the political space, I engage in dialogue under the auspices of IPOD, and I'm very ready to engage in dialogue. But the two are completely different entities. My UPC fielding a candidate and my being that candidate is neither anything, does not change anything about the dialogue. We allow ourselves to dialogue and to continue to discuss matters which are of importance. But the question now comes on, there are going to be the two major races which are going to take place in 2026 is the presidential and the parliamentary election. Now, each of those elections have a slightly different set of rules. The presidential is a 50% plus one vote. Parliamentary, it is first past the post, simple majority. So when you look at those two elections and the requirements to be able to succeed in those two elections, it determines how you approach those two elections. So in my own point of view and my own understanding on statistics and elections, where you have first past the post, if you divide your vote, somebody can be elected by a very small percentage, but will be a determinant. Hence, if we divide our votes at that stage, you can get a dominance of a particular entity which may not reflect the majority views of those on the ground. So it is important that there we dialogue with a view of how can we maximize the output from this election. In the 50+1 election, which is a presidential election, that in itself provides a mathematical formula on how it is determined. Where no candidate gets 50% plus one vote, the top two candidates will go for a rerun. So whatever votes I am holding will tally and add up at the end of the day. That where we do not have a 50+1 candidate, then we are automatically forced to sit down for the second round. And that in itself also provides that it is not fatal in the first round for each one to go their own way, because the second round will be the final determinant, and that one will only pick the top two. So for me, there's a big difference between the presidential and the parliamentary because of the 50+1 and the first past the post, which is a simple majority. That is what makes the big difference. Had it been the same for presidential, then it would make a lot of sense that people sit down and say, let us go with one candidate. But with a 50+1, which is enshrined in the Constitution, it is not a necessary or a fundamental requirement in order to be able to galvanize.
So literally you're saying the environment doesn't favor this?
Presidential in a 50+1, it is not a necessity. At parliamentary, if you want to prevent a supermajority in parliament, which is 2/3, or reduce to make it more manageable, that you'll have more of a conversation, then it's important that we do have that conversation.
So, Honorable Jim AKENA, you are among the first people, your UPC was among the first parties to have a pact with NRM. And what has been the achievement so far?
You see, we engaged, and following from your earlier question, I am open to discussion, dialogue. We engage in dialogue. We engaged on the basis that we are trying to smoothen some of the disagreements, maybe historical baggage which have existed within the society, trying to find ways whereby we can find a smoother way of handling the different political entities and handling the political space in a way which is, to me, more amicable. So finding ways of operating within an environment where you respect one another. And I think by and large, we have achieved some in that particular area. But where people draw issues of, no, because of this, you cannot field candidates, that is complete nonsense. There was never any attempt and never any desire that this will restrict UPC on fielding candidates and what position they can field for and the like. That has never been the case. UPC is free to field its candidates, it will field its candidates. UPC is free to compete for any position, and it shall compete for that position. So we must differentiate a political race from a post-political race. After election, there will be a time where there will be implementation. And by and large, when you have a winner, that's the manifesto which will be implemented over that term. Now, as we're coming to an election, it now opens up the space where my manifestos can now be put up. The issues which are there will determine what is going to take place in Uganda between 2026 to 2031. So there's a time for campaigning, there's a time where it is time to work, and then there's a time now to prepare for the next campaign.
Was it an open agreement?
There's what agreement? I mean, we reach some level of cooperation, but people try to make it as if there's a pact or something signed. There's nothing of the sort. There's nothing which you're going to hold me to saying I have broken an arrangement.
Was it a gentleman's agreement, Honorable Jim AKENA?
Even if you're now putting a word agreement. No. It is, we found ways of how we can
work together through mutual respect.
Mutual respect, without tying anyone to any issue. So as far as this 2026 is concerned, UPC, as we have done in previous elections, have fielded our own candidates. In my own personal case, I have always competed against an NRM candidate. NRM have always fielded a candidate. The first one was the National Vice Chairman, Northern, Sam Ingola. That's the person I contested with 2006. I was able to win there. They brought another candidate in 2011, Orechi Jogo. I was able to defeat him. Then in 2016, it was a witch poller. I also was able to win that election. Then, of course, 2021 was Onyango. But every election, I have stood against NRM, and I've never complained. All these by-elections, when we see us fighting in by-elections, we have competed against one another, and we shall compete against one another. So for me, I don't have a problem. If people have a problem with my contesting, that is their own issue. But as far as I'm concerned, I have respected each other, we've respected each other, but we fielded and supported our own candidates.
So maybe the party is not aware of your mutual understanding with the NRM, and that's why people are complaining.
The party are not complaining because where are they bound? If they were bound anyway, I would tell them this you cannot do, this you cannot do. I have never at any point told the party members this you cannot do, especially when it comes to fielding candidates or expressing your opinion or pushing the agenda of UPC. That has never happened and it can never happen. So it is people's own imaginations which are determining them, no, this cannot happen, this cannot happen. It will happen. I'm going to contest, UPC is going to field their candidates, and yeah.
Honorable Jim AKENA, as we leave that question, how should a layman understand that? These are the electorates. Someone can deem it as confusion.
Now that is where you totally underestimate the electorate. Because I've been contesting in elections. If this was a big problem to the electorate, it would have affected my election and also the election of those closest to me in my electoral area.
For 15 years?
Yes. Not 15 years, it's more of 10 years. But
more than 10?
Yeah. It would affect my own election more than somebody somewhere else. But it is something which I am open to. And also we need to make a distinction of serving the country or serving a political party. Now, there are areas where people get mixed up there, and there are those who believe that the government is a property of a political party. No. That political party has been given like a 5-year contract to run the government, which belongs to the people of Uganda. Right? And the people of Uganda have every right to recall and maybe put somebody else to administer their government. So serving in the government, you are serving in the government of the people of Uganda. Because all those ministries or whatever existed before this, even before NRM. And they will exist after NRM. So we need to also look at that issue that there's a distinction. There is a government which should serve all the people. There is a party which contested, got their majority by whatever means, are the ones who are now running the government of Uganda. Hmm? It is not a property of a particular party. You have your mandate to run it for that period of time. Now, while this party has a mandate to run it, I also have a mandate to represent my people and all the people, not only those who voted for me and those who did not, those who are of age and those who are not. I have the responsibility of representing them in the Parliament of Uganda.
So, Honorable, were you not fronting your own interests, like being selfish? Because if you have a mutual understanding with someone, however gentleman it would be, and then you file a candidate, or you come yourself, you find the person has failed in a candidate, and then you also come. So,
But you see,
looks like a contradiction.
I am representing or leading a political party. This political party, its reason of being is politics. Its currency of survival is votes. So we participate in politics, we seek the votes to propel us forward. So on that one, I am doing what I'm supposed to do as a political entity. If I can sit down and have a conversation with other players, which in my hope it is going to give us a better product which you can give the people of Uganda, I will do what I can. But there's no point whereby, because I am talking to another political party, I should cease to handle my politics. I should cease to field my candidates. That is a no-show. That will never happen. Then also, on another note, I'm also involved in motorsports. And motorsports, we compete. But according to rules, the rules are set. You respect the rules. You break the rules, you'll be penalized. But even where you have a teammate, the first order of business when you're racing is to defeat your teammate. But you're not doing it with malice or with anything. At the end of the race, often in motorsports or in other sports, you shake hands. If you lost and you found, okay, the reason why you lost, you prepare. There'll be another race.
Someone will say that is motorsport, this is politics.
Now, this is a race. How I will handle the race, when it is time for racing, I am there to race. When the race is over, the race is over. I would have learned my lessons and it will guide me to prepare for the next race. Because I'm not there just to fill a number, whatever. I want to go there, I want to go and win. I want to compete, I want to be competitive. So where it does not go well, I go back, I look, I review. And then I go back and compete for the next time. Now that is the importance of election cycles, to be regular, to be whatever, and according to rules which are acceptable. Now, if you have one rule which affects one group of people, another rule which affects another group of people, that is not, would say, fair. And that defeats the sportsmanship issue. That when you get onto the track, it is the same track for all of us. The same conditions which you're going to be racing under. That should be the same in the politics. And that's an area where there's a lot to be desired, in that other entities are being forced to restrict the opportunities for some of the political players. You don't have equal access. You don't have equal access to media. You don't have equal access to resources, because some of the resources, a lot of resources which are being used or misused, are resources which are diverted from within the government system, in that they should have been resources for something else, but they're brought and then they're brought into the issue of election and whatever. So no, definitely not. I am not undermining any form of agreement, because an agreement which undermines the principles of democracy in itself is a very wrong agreement, and I can't be a party to that one.
Okay, you were also in position to share with us maybe some of the achievements of IPOD, because some of your critics say that this is just a table of sharing a national cake with the ruling government.
IPOD, the way it has been designed, provides veto to all the members, in that you cannot pass anything in IPOD which a single member does not agree with. So IPOD can only agree on things on a consensus basis. And yes, what have we achieved? We've been able to achieve some level of discussion. At the end of the last election, we got an agreement for, I think, 54 of the people who had been arrested to be released. We got an agreement on additional funding for political parties to handle some of the processes which are important in the issue of developing um, um, the political parties and the political process. We were also able to have serious discussions on the Public Order Management Act, although we were not able to take it to the summit level for implementation, but there were some serious discussions onto the implementation of the Public Order Management Act. So there are areas where I would say yes, they were positive, but there are areas where, of course, did not achieve. But at least not me, I did not expect everything could be achieved under the auspices of IPOD. But IPOD also provided a basis whereby we can talk to each other. And it was my belief, and it still remains my belief, that if I can sit down with somebody and talk about some things, well, things of serious nature, where necessary, we can actually discuss much more complicated matters. But if at the onset there are people who cannot sit in the same room, I don't know how you will be able to discuss a very delicate and complicated matter which can come about within this political process. So breaking the ice is important. You never know when you may need to sit down and have that serious conversation. So I will remain open to discuss with political players across the political divide. That is something which I feel is important for politics, that you must have avenues whereby matters can be explored or matters can be discussed. Not all matters need to be solved in a particular way, but where there are avenues where you can address things in a different way, it's important to keep it open.
Could it be the reason that some of these other political parties which are being strangled by the system, is it that they are not part of IPOD and they cannot share their concerns in such a table, and that's why they are being treated like that?
IPOD is open to all political parties which have representation in parliament. And then you sign on to the MOU, and that is what we work on that basis. I know that there are two political parties which, from the onset, said they're not going to be part of IPOD. One of them participated in the development of the MOU, because each time the MOU is revised. So like FDC participated in the development of the MOU, but have not signed. NUP have not participated in the IPOD, but NUP have benefited from the discussions which we had. The increased funding which is available to political parties, NUP is a beneficiary through the IPOD arrangement. And so it's a choice.
Honorable Jim
It's a
AKENA,
choice.
when you say NUP benefited, is something that we can dig deeper, because the platform you used to negotiate for the increment of the funding was IPOD, but NUP benefited from the funds of the under the Political Parties Organization Act.
No.
And this is something that found, it was an oversight according to Parliament, that the IPOD funding found its way in Parliament, which was not supposed to be the case, because you negotiated while you were with the President HE Museveni at State House. So NUP, there was no way NUP would not take this money, because it is legally right.
Now there you're wrong, that we were negotiated in State House. The first summit which discussed the principles around the increased funding was held in Munyonyo, and I was chair of IPOD at that time. The second summit which took it to the next level, where now we had agreed on some of the principles and the percentages and the like, was at Entebbe in the Protea Hotel, chaired by Norbert Mao. So none of these were chaired in State House. Now, the increased funding was agreed, and since the funding which we're talking about is funding from the public coffers, definitely it had to go through Parliament and through the Political Parties and Organizations Act, which money goes through the Electoral Commission and then to the political parties. So even when we're negotiating this one, we're not negotiating to have an arrangement outside of this. We were putting the issue that the funding should go for the political parties with representation in Parliament to be able to enhance their ability to represent their people, to articulate, to develop policies, to run their parties, hold their meetings, National Council Delegates Conference. That was the issue of the funding. So it was not designed to say that it's only for those who signed to the memorandum. It was done on the basis that we're negotiating this funding for parties with representation in Parliament, right? So NUP, as a party with representation in Parliament, found this funding in place and benefited from the funding. But there was no, at least on my side, there was never an effort to negotiate it exclusively for those who signed to the MOU. It was no, to facilitate the political parties, which are playing an important role and have representation in that important institution known as the Parliament of Uganda.
Was it the right platform in IPOD to discuss matters of Parliament, matters of Political Parties Organization Act?
At the time when we were discussing it, all the parties which had representation in Parliament participated in the process. It is only FDC which did not attend the summit, but attended the council meetings, which is where we draw the agenda of the summit. So even when I was pushing this agenda for extra funding, I had to pass it through the council, which is the council which involves all political parties with representation in Parliament. They all participated. We went through 2 council meetings.
Inclusive.
NUP was not yet in Parliament. This was negotiated.
Oh, that was negotiated in the last,
the
10th
Parliament. Yes.
Okay.
At the end of the 10th Parliament is where it became effective. So NUP was not in Parliament. Some of the NUP members were in Parliament, but were members of other political parties or independents in the Parliament. Yes. So NUP found it in place. And anything that we negotiate which will benefit political parties, whichever forum we use, it should be implemented on a national forum which will have an effect. So there's no point in negotiating on the side and then keep it on the side. It should be part of the national processes or discourse.
Was it a blessing in disguise to NUP?
I think that one you need to ask NUP, because all of us, all the political parties, we have needed the resources, and the resources have helped us to do something, although it is there's still gaps which need to be done, but resources definitely was an important aspect.
As the then chairman, do you regret passing this resolution?
No, I don't regret passing it. It was a positive issue. What the regret is that it has only been implemented to some extent. It has not been implemented to the full extent of what we agreed. There were certain principles which we agreed. There are certain aspects which we also agreed upon, which have not yet been implemented. So if you get something and then maybe you get a 60% implementation of an idea, yes, it's better than zero, but it is not the 100% of what we discussed. Because there's an area where we wanted on the policy development, right? Personally, I would prefer that political parties, we can come up with well-researched policy positions. I may be able to identify there's a problem, but the identification of the solution may require a lot more research, a lot more statistics, a lot more figures, so a technical work to be done. So when I'm presenting a blueprint for Uganda 2026 to 2031, it should be well researched, costed, and gone through a rigorous process that at least the electorate will know that this has been done. Now, if all the political parties which are presenting their manifestos have well-researched and well-presented, well-organized manifestos, the general possible outcome is a much better product. That whoever wins the election, it will be influenced by these well-researched positions, which will then have an effect of what deliverables will be available to the citizens of Uganda. So to up the game, it helps the end product. And there I still feel that there's more which needs to be done.
This is also another concern that perhaps that's why we are having emerging political parties, emerging leaders coming in for the presidency. Honorable Jim AKENA announced his bid for presidency, and the critics are saying you want to be part of this, sharing this national cake, this the funds from the IPOD, political parties, and so on.
Political parties are necessary in governance. They provide a mechanism where citizens can participate, can also debate or discuss within themselves before presenting to a wider public. So, across the world, governments are run by political parties, and political parties organize to get the views of their members and views of citizens in order to present something which is attainable. I do not believe that there's any other system which works as good as one which allows political parties. The ones which restrict political parties normally go by the simple term of dictatorships. And dictatorships, often when they do excesses, it is hard to address. And when the correction occurs, it is very sudden and drastic. In a political discourse where you have elections and you have the debates, there is normally safety valves which prevent a complete meltdown from taking place. So I will always support political parties' discourse. And I will not say that political parties are trying to get a space for themselves. It is a way where you can aggregate the different ideas and present them in a coherent form. Otherwise, if you're just having individual agendas, which personal merit, whatever, everybody will have their own agenda. I may feel this is different or whatever, but where you're able to implement something is where you approach it in a collective way and you have people who share the same vision where they're able to do so.
As someone who values mutual respect, as you have just stated earlier, do you debunk now the saying that there's dictatorship in Uganda? President Yoweri Museveni has ruled under a dictatorship format.
He has ruled under dictatorship format. The first 10 years, there was no election. No election per se. There was this so-called expansion of the NRC. NRC is an organ, was supposed to be an organ of a political entity, which was then called the parliament. And when they did that expansion, you could go as NRM or movement, but as a political party, you could not go. You could only go as an individual. Then you had elections. 96 was no party elections. 2001 no party elections.
Until 2006.
2006 was the first multi-party elections. So that is definitely not a democracy. And even if you go historically, what they put was to put a one-party state under NRM. Then they started calling it a no-party movement system. That is just semantics, but the issue was there was one party. Now, my own point of view, some of the excesses which occurred. At the time when I was even joining the multi-party race in 2006, my constituency had thousands of IDPs. The whole region had thousands upon thousands of IDPs. We had a breakdown. We had displaced schools, like 3 schools in one school. You know, already in the Uganda system, you have overcrowded schools. Classrooms are overcrowded. Now, you add 2 other schools into this overcrowded classroom. That was the sort of situation which people are going through and were supposed to emerge and compete with others. So definitely, those are excesses which could have been addressed had there been an opportunity for people to articulate. So those are issues which had to be addressed as quickly as possible to try to create some level of normalcy. So democracy, with all its weaknesses, is always better.
So for the first 10 years when we were under the movement system, that's when you can say dictatorship.
No, that was 100% dictatorship. One party state is a dictatorship. Now you have an issue where you have multi-party on paper. In practice, it is not as open. That those who can easily get clearance to hold meetings or to whatever is not the same across the political divide. So definitely the ground is not quite level. And those are issues where, okay, you may not say that is an outright whatever, but it's a dictatorial tendency of where meetings will be shut down for some, for others they'll be protected, even if they've not followed the full channels. So those are areas which needs improvement, and there's always room for improvement. And there's some areas where certain offices, and this one I'll be very open, like going into this election where we're going as it's a national conversation. I fail to see the role of ISO. ISO. As Ugandans, all Ugandans have a right to participate in this discussion on the future of Uganda. So let us all participate. ISO tends to be reporting on activities against the sitting government, which should be different from, as a citizen, what right do I have when it comes to an election? What conversation can I have? I also have an issue around the RDCs. And many of them have been talking openly that they need to support Museveni, they need to look for votes from Museveni. Now, these are people who are paid for under the public coffers.
The taxpayers' money.
Taxpayers' money. The citizen money. Now, they are supposed to represent the whole citizens of the area, not the political agenda of the president. Yes, their official work is to see that the programs are being implemented and the like. But now in an election, you cannot be paid by the taxpayer and also at the same time you are actively campaigning for a particular entity. So those are issues which we need to sit down and address. What role are you playing as far as this election is concerned? If you're playing an overt political role, campaigning for a political candidate, it should not be the case. So those are issues. ISO, RDCs, that one needs to be addressed. Then sometimes you have where they say the military has been called upon, and okay, the law allows police to call upon other security agencies to assist, but the areas where we said, no, this is a conversation, all of us as Ugandans.
So these are areas,
whether you like or you don't like, we're all Ugandans and we have a right to talk about our future.
So according to you, we only have areas which can be improved, but doesn't really necessarily tantamount to dictatorship.
I don't know why you're stressing this issue. Where you have had an overdominance of a political entity has consolidated that position through use of force and using the law where others are not allowed to participate. You have done so for a good 20 years. In other words, you've given yourself an unassailable advantage. You have personalized institutions, including the likes of ISO, RDCs, including other pseudo-parliamentary organizations. And then you say this is a level playing field in a multi-party democracy. No, that is not the case, right? Clearly, it is not a level playing field. It has not been level, and it is not likely to be level just by a few tweaks here and there. But there are areas which we need to address quickly and urgently and make sure we have a better chance. I go into elections knowing that I have to win overwhelmingly for it to stand. I cannot take it for granted. I mean, there are other jurisdictions. Somebody goes and votes and goes home and waits for the results. In the case of Uganda, you must be vigilant. You must be vigilant. You saw what happened in Oyam. Somebody comes with a pistol, threatens the presiding officer, and stuffs 300 ballots in a polling station which had only about 500 voters. So once you put 300 ballots in there, whatever the case, you're winning that polling station. Now, if you have such sort of things happening or can happen, now, surely, who can do that one? Who can come with a vehicle ordinarily for security agencies, armed with a pistol, tell a presiding officer that give me the ballots? The fellow resists, he insists, you come and you pick the ballots, you tick them and stick them in the ballot box. Those are people who are in the system. And the system does not seem to be ready to restrict the sort of activities which have happened. Instead, they're saying, no, we don't know. It could be anyone. Not anybody can walk around with a gun and with a vehicle, which is ordinarily for security agencies. So let's be serious that there is a problem. It's not a level playing field. We are competing under difficult circumstances, but we are still in the race.
Perhaps could be the reason why your colleagues are fronting electoral reforms. And Honorable Norbert Mao says we don't want the participation of the military in elections.
Electoral reforms have always been there, and in every cycle we go through this ritual of saying we're going to bring reforms, but many of the reforms which would have been relevant and would have played a big role in this particular election should have been done much earlier. It is a bit late to do some of them, those which will affect the actual practice of election, because there are things which are here being muted which have not been done. The Electoral Commission has been preparing under this basis. Changing things now will be very difficult to change. There'll be procurement issues, there'll be issues which will cause things offside. So the cycle or the process of electoral reforms, some of them which have been determined by court, where court has insisted that there should be certain reforms, have not been done. And each cycle they come late, and then we don't do them, and then we promise to do them next cycle. This is something which should have been done. And this will be some of the things to make it you'd say fairer, or make the process more accountable or more predictable. Those are some of the issues which are there but have not yet been addressed.
There are those who are saying that if the constitution also needs to be in this talk of electoral reforms, even constitutional reforms, like we need to reduce on the powers to the president. The powers of the president of appointing the EC chairperson, appointing CDF and other areas. What is your take on this?
You see, when the 95 Constitution came about, there were things which people said which amused me. One of the justifications was that the president had too much powers under the 1967 Constitution. 67 Constitution was a parliamentary system. So parties compete for parliament. The party with the majority in parliament is given the first chance to form a government. If they're able to form a government, that's the government which will be there. But that put power in parliament, right? When we did this presidential system, power was taken from parliament and put in the presidency. So the issue of appointments, whether it's the judicial officers, is the president. Whether it is where you brought in issue, Electoral Commission, the president. Head of security organs and whatever, it is the president. So you have created this issue of the president with a lot of powers, and the longevity of this particular president. You will not find a single judge from any court who was not appointed by this president. Now, if a matter comes before that judge, which involves the same appointing president, it becomes a problem. That is why in jurisdictions where you have a presidential system, there is normally a term limit, such that you don't get this over-dominance where all the systems will be under control of a particular group of people. If you follow the American system, currently the Supreme Court, the White House, and the House, Senate, and the House of Representatives is currently held by one party. And the fear around that issue was, if you get too much dominance, it will affect all the running of all institutions of the state. Hence, they put a term limit. Now, if a vacancy falls under a Democratic party leader, they are likely to put a Democratic-leaning justice in that environment. That was ways of restricting the long-term effects of a presidential system and a long-term president. In the case of Uganda, ours is extreme. There is no commission which exists, not only the Electoral Commission, all of the commissions appointed by the president. All of the judicial officers by the president. All of the security entities. You talk of CDF, but that is the same. IGP, CMI, everything is appointed by one particular person. That is where that issue comes of reforms. If we have the issue, you put a term limit so that you do not create this over dominance, which in itself affects delivery of goods and services to the people. When you become over dependent on anything, your delivery will be affected. Yeah.
All right. So, Honorable Jimmy AKENA, away from your political bid for 2026, I also read somewhere that Honorable Betty Amongi is making a shift to leader from Oyam. First of all, I would love to know or to understand from you, literally just a simple understanding. How is it to be leading the UPC, being in UPC, and your wife is serving in NRM? How is it to you? How have you managed this?
My wife has been serving as a minister in the government of Uganda. Government of Uganda. I must stress that one. It is different from NRM as an entity. NRM is a political party. NRM at its current form dominates the parliament and maybe the political space. Hence, the government is being run by NRM, but it's a government of Uganda. So, my urging to all who have an opportunity to serve at a national level, serve in the interest of the people. Because those offices are there to serve the people, you must do everything you can for the people of Uganda. I have remained in UPC, Betty has been in UPC. In every election, we have had NRM field candidates against us. We have competed against NRM candidates, and we have won. Including in the last election where she was a minister contesting, NRM fielded a candidate. We still won, she won the seat, and then she was appointed again as a minister. So our being able to serve the country does not remove our rights to be able to compete for seats according to our own beliefs and in a party which we support. So definitely, Honorable Betty, we've made a decision that she's now going to come and contest in Lira City for the 2026 election. We have candidates who are going to, who are interested in her seat in Oyam South. Likewise, I have candidates who are interested in my seat of Lira City East, who are going to go through a process, and I'll support whoever holds the flag for the 2026 election.
All right, thank you very much, Honorable Jimmy AKENA. Why is it that you have been always the best choice for the UPC candidacy presidency?
No, I've not always been the best choice. In 2010, if you recall, I offered myself, I lost, and I conceded in Nambole where we had our delegates conference, and I promised the members that I'm going to go back, mobilize, and I'll be back in 5 years. So I came back in 5 years. So it is not that I have always. My first attempt was not successful.
What do you bring on the table in 2026 manifesto?
2026 manifesto is going to be very interesting, but it's going to be a people-centered manifesto. The conversation which we're going to have is going to push the limit. Of course, there's some people who are going to be uncomfortable, but we're definitely going to have an honest conversation as to where Uganda is, where it should be, and how it can get there. And as UPC, we're definitely going to present our best foot forward on what we honestly believe can make a difference in the lives of citizens of Uganda, and we're going to do everything we can to deliver upon those.
All right, thank you very much, Honorable Jimmy AKENA, and we hope to get more of your wisdom. We wish you well.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity.